"It hurts, but I need more broken heart," the cowboy whispered. "Sweetheart, you're stronger than a Mustang." The small town of Silver Creek sat quietly under the wide western sky. Dusty roads ran between wooden buildings, and a warm wind carried the smell of hay and dry grass. Horses moved slowly near the ranch fences, and the sound of boots on wooden porches echoed through the peaceful streets. Most people in Silver Creek knew each other. They greeted one another every morning and shared stories at the small cafe near the town square. Life there was simple, steady, and calm, but there was one person people did not know much about. Her name was Clara Bennett. Clara lived on the edge of town, near an old ranch that had seen better days. The fences were worn, and the barn doors creaked when the wind pushed against them. Still, Clara worked there every day without complaint. Every morning before the sun fully rose, Clara stepped outside with her worn boots and tied-back hair. She carried buckets of water, checked the horses, and repaired small parts of the ranch that needed fixing. She did not talk much. The townspeople often saw her riding a horse along the dusty road or walking beside the pasture fence. She kept her head down and focused on her work. Some people wondered about her story, but Clara never shared it. To many people, she seemed quiet and distant, but inside, Clara carried a heavy heart. Life had not been easy for her. She had learned early that the world could be tough, and sometimes people had to stand on their own feet. Because of this, she trusted very few people. Still, one thing made Clara feel calm: horses. Clara loved horses more than anything else in the world. She understood their quiet nature. She liked how they listened without asking questions. To her, horses felt honest. One afternoon, the town felt warmer than usual. The sun shined brightly, and a dry wind moved slowly across the land. Clara stood inside the ranch corral, holding a rope and watching a wild Mustang that had recently been brought to the ranch. The horse was strong and beautiful. Its dark coat shined under the sun, and its eyes were sharp and alert. But the Mustang trusted no one. Every time someone came close, the horse stepped away quickly. It moved with power and caution, watching everything around it. The ranch owner had said the horse was difficult to train. Most people believed the Mustang would never accept a rider, but Clara did not give up easily. She slowly stepped closer, speaking softly. "It's okay," she whispered gently. The Mustang lifted its head and moved away again. Its hooves kicked up dust in the corral. Outside the fence, a few townspeople had gathered to watch. Some of them shook their heads. "That horse is too wild," one man said. Another person sighed. She should stop trying. But Clara kept trying. She held the rope carefully and moved slowly, showing the horse she meant no harm. Her movements were calm and patient. Still, the Mustang would not let her come close. Suddenly, the horse ran across the corral again, causing dust to rise into the warm air. Clara stepped back slightly. For a moment, she felt doubt inside her chest. Maybe the townspeople were right. Maybe the horse really was too wild. Just then, a quiet voice came from behind the wooden fence. "You're trying too hard." Clara turned around. Leaning against the fence stood a tall cowboy wearing a brown hat and a calm expression. His name was Ethan Hayes. Almost everyone in Silver Creek knew Ethan. He was known as one of the best horse trainers in the region. People said he had a special way of understanding horses. But Ethan was not loud or proud about his skills. He spoke gently and rarely showed off. Clara had seen him around town before, but they had never spoken. Ethan watched the Mustang quietly for a moment. Then he looked at Clara. "Horses like that," he said calmly, "don't respond to pressure." Clara wiped the dust from her hands and looked at him. "Then what do they respond to?" she asked. Ethan smiled slightly. "Trust." Clara looked back at the Mustang, who now stood near the far side of the corral. The horse watched them carefully. Ethan walked a few steps closer to the fence. "You see that horse?" he said. "It's not angry. It's just unsure." Clara stayed silent. She understood that feeling more than she wanted to admit. Ethan continued speaking in his calm voice. "Sometimes strength isn't about forcing things to happen," he said. "Sometimes it's about patience." Clara looked down at the rope in her hands. For a moment, she wondered if she really was strong enough to do this. Maybe the horse could sense her doubts. Ethan seemed to notice the sadness in her eyes. After a short pause, he spoke again. His voice was softer now. "Sweetheart," he said gently, "you're stronger than a Mustang." The word surprised Clara. No one had ever said something like that to her before. She slowly looked back at the horse. The Mustang stood quietly now, its ears turning slightly toward them. For the first time that afternoon, Clara did not feel rushed. Maybe strength did not mean winning quickly. Maybe it meant standing up again and again, even when things were difficult. Clara took a slow breath. Then she stepped forward once more. The afternoon sun slowly moved across the wide sky above Silver Creek. The wind was softer now, and the dust in the corral had settled. Clara stood quietly near the wooden fence, thinking about Ethan's words. Sometimes strength is patience. Those words stayed in her mind. The Mustang still stood on the other side of the corral. Its dark coat shined in the fading sunlight, and its sharp eyes watched every small movement around it. Clara no longer held the rope tightly. Instead, she simply stood there, calm and quiet. Ethan leaned against the fence, watching both of them. He did not rush her. "Take your time," he said gently. Clara nodded slightly. She slowly stepped into the corral again. But this time, she did not walk straight toward the horse. Instead, she moved sideways, giving the Mustang space. The horse lifted its head and watched her carefully. Before, Clara had tried to reach the horse quickly. She had thought that showing confidence meant moving fast. But now she understood something new. Trust could not be forced. It had to grow slowly. Clara stopped walking and simply stood there. The wind moved through the dry grass outside the fence, and a quiet sound filled the air. For several minutes, nothing happened. The townspeople who had been watching earlier had already left. Now only Ethan remained. He folded his arms and spoke again. "Horses read your energy," he said. "If you are calm, they begin to feel safe." Clara looked at the Mustang again. The horse was still watching her, but its body looked less tense now. Slowly, Clara took one small step forward. The Mustang did not run this time. Clara's heart beat faster, but she stayed calm. She remembered something she had learned long ago. Animals could feel fear. If she became nervous, the horse would sense it. So she breathed slowly and kept her movements gentle. Another step. The Mustang shifted its weight, but did not move away. Ethan smiled slightly from the fence. "That's it," he said quietly. "Let the horse choose to trust you." Clara did not speak. Her eyes stayed on the Mustang. She raised her hand slowly, showing that it was empty and harmless. For a moment, the horse stepped back. Clara stopped immediately. She did not chase it. Instead, she waited again. The Mustang walked in a small circle inside the corral, thinking in its own way. Then it stopped and looked at Clara once more. The distance between them was smaller now. Clara felt something new inside her chest. Hope. After a few more minutes, the Mustang slowly lowered its head and took a few steps forward. Clara could hardly believe it. The horse was coming closer on its own. Ethan watched carefully but stayed silent. The Mustang stopped only a few steps away from Clara. Its ears moved gently as it studied her. Clara kept her body relaxed. Very slowly, she reached out her hand. For a moment, the horse hesitated. Then it leaned forward and sniffed her hand. Clara smiled softly. It was a small moment, but it felt important. She gently touched the side of the horse's neck. The Mustang flinched slightly but did not run away. "Good," Clara whispered softly. Ethan nodded from the fence. "You see," he said, "trust always starts small." Clara stroked the horse's neck slowly. The Mustang's breathing began to slow down. For the first time, Clara felt that the horse was not fighting her. Instead, it was listening. The sun slowly began to set behind the distant hills. The sky turned shades of orange and gold. After some time, Clara stepped back and let the horse rest. She walked toward the fence where Ethan stood. "That was different," she said quietly. Ethan smiled. "You stopped trying to control the horse," he said. "You started understanding it." Clara looked back at the Mustang. The horse now stood calmly in the center of the corral. "Why does it feel familiar?" Clara asked. Ethan tilted his head slightly. "What do you mean?" Clara thought for a moment before answering. "The horse," she said softly. It acts like it's afraid to trust anyone. Ethan nodded slowly. A lot of strong creatures feel that way, he said. Clara understood what he meant. She had felt that way too. For years, she had built quiet walls around herself. She worked alone, spoke little, and trusted no one. But today something had changed. The Mustang had taken a small step toward her. Maybe she could take one too. Ethan adjusted his hat and looked toward the setting sun. You did well today, he said. Clara looked at the horse once more. The Mustang raised its head slightly, as if it recognized her now. Clara felt a small but powerful sense of pride. It was only the beginning. But sometimes the beginning was the most important part. And deep inside, Clara knew something. The days in Silver Creek passed slowly, but something new had started to grow at the old ranch. Every morning the sun rose over the wide fields, and Clara was already awake before the town fully stirred. The Mustang had become part of her daily routine. At first, the horse had only allowed Clara to stand close. Then it allowed her to touch its neck. After that, little by little, the horse began to follow her voice. Trust was growing. It was not fast. Some days the Mustang stepped away again, unsure and nervous. But Clara did not become frustrated anymore. She remembered Ethan's words. Patience. Each day she spent time in the corral, walking beside the horse, speaking softly and letting the Mustang move freely. The horse began to recognize her footsteps and the gentle sound of her voice. From the wooden fence, Ethan often watched quietly. He never interfered too much. Sometimes he gave small advice, but most of the time he simply observed. One evening, as the sky turned golden, Ethan walked toward the corral. You've both come a long way, he said. Clara stood beside the Mustang, brushing dust from its coat. It still feels like the horse is testing me, she replied. Ethan nodded. That's normal. Trust grows in layers. Clara looked at the horse. The Mustang stood calmly now, its ears relaxed. Just a few weeks ago, it would not even let her come close. Now it stood beside her. Ethan leaned against the fence and continued speaking. Silver Creek is having the Desert Ride Festival next week. Clara looked up. The Desert Ride Festival was one of the biggest events in town. Riders from nearby ranches came to show their horses and skills. The whole town gathered to watch. Music played, food stalls opened, and the dusty field outside town filled with cheering voices. Clara had watched the festival before, but she had never taken part in it. Ethan studied her expression. You should ride in it, he said. Clara blinked in surprise. With this horse? She asked. Ethan nodded toward the Mustang. Yes. Clara shook her head slightly. I'm not ready, she said. The idea made her nervous. The Mustang was improving, but it was still a wild horse at heart. Riding it in front of the entire town felt impossible. Ethan watched her quietly. Strength doesn't come from feeling ready, he said calmly. Sometimes strength appears when you decide to try. Clara looked down at the ground. She remembered the day Ethan had first spoken to her in the corral. You're stronger than a Mustang. At that time, she had not believed him. But now things were different. Still, doubt remained inside her. That night, Clara sat on the wooden fence near the barn while the sun disappeared behind the hills. The Mustang grazed quietly nearby. The wind moved through the grass, carrying the soft sound of the evening. Clara watched the horse carefully. The Mustang lifted its head and walked toward her slowly. It stopped beside the fence. Clara reached out and touched its neck gently. You're strong, she whispered to the horse. The Mustang breathed calmly. For a moment, Clara realized something important. This horse had once trusted no one. Now it trusted her. Maybe she needed to trust herself too. Over the next few days, Clara began preparing. She practiced riding the Mustang inside the wide pasture behind the ranch. At first, she rode only for a few minutes at a time. The horse moved carefully, still learning to follow her direction. But day by day, their connection improved. Clara learned the rhythm of the horse's steps. She learned when to guide gently and when to simply allow the Mustang to move freely. Sometimes Ethan watched from a distance, smiling quietly. One afternoon, the practice ride went perfectly. The Mustang trotted smoothly across the field while Clara sat balanced and calm. Ethan walked over afterward. How did it feel? He asked. Clara slid down from the saddle. Better than I expected, she admitted. Ethan nodded. You and that horse understand each other now. Clara looked toward the town in the distance. The Desert Ride Festival was only one day away. The thought still made her nervous. What if I fail? She asked softly. Ethan looked at her with calm eyes. Failing isn't falling, he said. Failing is refusing to try. The next morning, the town of Silver Creek was alive with excitement. Colorful flags hung along the wooden fences. People gathered near the open riding field outside town. Music played, children laughed, and riders prepared their horses. Clara stood beside the Mustang at the edge of the field. Her hands felt slightly cold. The horse seemed calm, but her heart was racing. Ethan walked up beside her. You look nervous, he said with a small smile. Clara gave a quiet laugh. A little. Ethan placed a reassuring hand on the fence. Then he spoke softly. Clara, remember something. She looked at him. His voice was steady and warm. You're stronger than a Mustang. Clara took a deep breath. She looked at the horse standing beside her. The Mustang gently nudged her shoulder. It was as if the horse trusted her completely now. Clara placed her foot in the stirrup and climbed into the saddle. As she rode slowly toward the open field, the crowd began to watch. For a moment, everything felt silent. Clara held the reins lightly and looked ahead. This was the moment of truth. The wide riding field outside Silver Creek was full of people. Families stood near the wooden fences. Children sat on the rails, and riders waited with their horses. Colorful flags moved gently in the warm wind. The Desert Ride Festival had begun. Music played from the small stage near the center of the field. The town felt alive with excitement and laughter. Clara sat quietly on the Mustang near the edge of the field. Her hands held the reins softly, and she tried to steady her breathing. The horse shifted its weight slightly but stayed calm. Only a few weeks ago, the Mustang had been too wild for anyone to ride. Now Clara sat on its back while the entire town watched. It felt unreal. Clara looked toward the crowd. Many familiar faces from Silver Creek stood along the fence. Some looked curious, some surprised. They had seen her working quietly at the ranch for years, but they had never seen her like this. Near the fence stood Ethan Hayes. His hat shaded his eyes, but Clara could see the calm smile on his face. He gave her a small nod. That simple gesture helped her feel stronger. A voice from the stage called out the next rider. Next up, Clara Bennett. A quiet wave of murmurs moved through the crowd. People leaned forward to watch. Clara gently tapped the Mustang's side. The horse stepped forward. They moved slowly into the open field, where the soft dust rose beneath the horse's hooves. For a moment, Clara felt the nervous feeling return to her chest. Her heart beat faster. What if something goes wrong? She wondered, but then she remembered everything that had brought her to this moment. The quiet mornings at the ranch, the slow days of learning patience, the moment when the Mustang had trusted her hand for the first time. Clara took a deep breath and relaxed her shoulders. The Mustang felt the change. The horse lowered its head slightly and began walking in a smooth circle across the field. The crowd grew quiet. Clara guided the horse gently, not forcing it, just communicating through small movements and calm signals. The Mustang responded beautifully. Step by step, horse and rider moved together in perfect rhythm. They trotted across the field, turning smoothly and moving with confidence. The wind lifted Clara's hair as the horse moved faster. But Clara was no longer afraid. She felt balanced and steady. It was not about controlling the horse. It was about trusting each other. From the fence, Ethan watched proudly. He had seen many riders in Silver Creek, but this moment felt special. Because Clara was not just showing skill. She was showing courage. The Mustang carried her across the open field with strength and grace. Dust rose behind them as they made one final smooth turn. Then Clara gently slowed the horse. The Mustang came to a calm stop near the center of the field. For a second, everything was quiet. Then the crowd began to clap. The sound grew louder as more people joined in. Children cheered, and riders along the fence nodded with respect. Clara blinked in surprise. She had not expected such a reaction. She simply smiled and patted the Mustang's neck. "You did great," she whispered softly. The horse breathed calmly, as if it understood. Clara turned the horse and slowly rode back toward the fence. When she reached the edge of the field, Ethan stepped forward. "Well," he said with a warm smile, "that was something." Clara laughed quietly as she climbed down from the saddle. "My legs are still shaking," she admitted. Ethan chuckled. "That's normal." Clara looked back at the Mustang, who now stood peacefully beside her. "I almost didn't try," she said. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "But you did." Clara leaned gently against the fence and watched the rest of the festival. Riders continued showing their horses, but she no longer felt nervous. Instead, she felt proud, not because she had impressed the town, but because she had overcome the doubt inside herself. The sun slowly began to set over Silver Creek. The sky turned soft shades of orange and pink. The festival began to wind down as families headed home and riders packed their gear. Clara walked the Mustang back toward the ranch road. Ethan walked beside her. The evening air was calm and peaceful. After a moment, Ethan spoke again. "Do you remember what I told you the first day?" Clara smiled slightly. "Yes." Ethan tilted his head. "And what was it?" Clara looked at the Mustang, walking quietly beside her. Then she answered, "You said I was stronger than a Mustang." Ethan nodded. "And today," he said, "you proved it." Clara looked across the wide open land around Silver Creek. For the first time in a long while, she felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. Life was still full of challenges, but now she knew something important. Strength did not mean never feeling fear. Strength meant moving forward anyway. Beside her, the Mustang walked calmly, no longer wild and distant. It had found trust.